A few.
I don't,
I grew a few just for myself.
Okay.
yeah, I probably, they might be in the garage.
I got some Tara,
Two tars.
Tara Root.
Yeah.
Speeding.
All right. Okay. So, y'all, I think y'all have done this before.
Yeah,
but
yes.
you know what you're doing. But since it's both of you doing an interview together,
Yeah.
either be looking at each other or you can look at me while the other person's talking.
Okay.
And just try not to make any references to questions or past answers. Just
Okay.
So that we can use each soundbite.
Okay. So we ain't got to repeat your question.
Kind of, yeah. Or just answer it like it's a new question.
Okay.
If that makes sense,
Alright.
yeah. But to start off, I'd love if each of you could introduce yourself one by one. Just for example, like, say I'm Maggie McIntyre, I'm a student at UNC Chapel Hill. Just each of you could say that would be great.
All right.
Whichever one of you wants to start.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Connie Locklear. I'm co-owner of New Ground Farm. It's located in Robinson County, Pembroke, North Carolina.
Good morning. I'm Miller Locklear, the other co-owner of New Ground Farm located here in Pembroke.
Maggie, did you look at the camera or you?
Go ahead and look at me. If you
Okay.
want to restart that. Yeah. While you're answering questions, you can just talk like it's a conversation. You can ignore the
Okay.
camera.
Okay.
So
Good.
go ahead and
You don't want to look at the camera
yeah.
at all.
Pretend like it's not there. Yeah.
All right.
She's the one you want to look at.
Okay.
Go ahead. All right. Go ahead and reintroduce yourself if you could.
Good morning. My name is Miller Locklear. I'm co-owner of New Ground Farm here in Pembroke, North Carolina.
I'm Connie Locklear. I'm co-owner of New Ground Farm, located in Robinson County, Pembroke, North Carolina.
And if you, to start off, if you could tell us about this land and how you came into farming it,
Yeah. Okay.
all of that.
All right. Well, this land here, what we're sitting on is ancestor land that I inherited from my father, which he inherited from the other. So we're sitting on this. We're the fifth generation living on this land. I seen my great grandfather, my grandfathers, my grandmothers, and great grandmothers on this land. I think my parents lived on it. So we've been living 100% on the land since '91. We lived off and on this land for the rest of our lives. When I was born, I was living on this land at the time. So yes, we inherited it from my father, and we've been tilling it and farming it permanent between us two since 2015.
And why did you decide to start farming?
Well, we farmed our whole lives and everything on and off. I helped my father farm on and off on this land my whole life. We're the first generation to leave the land and go into public work for 100% of our wages. But both of us still worked on the farm. We had time off for different things like that there. So there's no what we're going to do. As my father was passing away in the 2005 and 6, I agreed that I would come back to the land and farm it since I inherited it.
And what makes this farm special to you?
The biggest aspect, especially when Daddy was in the hospital and the doctor was talking to him, and he told me and him we should be super healthy men since we till our own land, own our own land, so we know everything about our land. And that really struck a chord in me that we control ourselves and our health by what we eat and consume. So this farm is Harmony Gap certified. It's certified sustainably grown, so there's no chemicals or anything like that goes on this land.
How did your farm get its name?
This field where we're sitting at right now, all the old timers had fields, and they go out like Dad said, we'll go to this front part one. I know where that field is. Go there to the cow pasture and work. Go here and there. This field's the last field that we cleared on this farm. They call it the new ground. So go work in the new ground field or work in the long field. So this field is actually named new ground, and I always noted the new ground field all my life. So when we come here to live on it, we decided we would keep the name.
And I also want to hear how you kind of learned about farming and the agricultural knowledge that you have. Did that come from your families, passing that down to you?
Most of it did. When we was looking to retire, especially in 2012, 2013, the new types of farming systems, monoculture was dying down. They got this polyculture, sustainable agriculture. So I attended Pittsburgh at community college there, up on the Tony Cleese, and took a 2-year program for sustainable agriculture. And then I attended Federal State University and took regenerative agriculture 1 semester. And then I started going to AT University, studying food safety and all different programs, short workshops they have.
Okay. And how about you, Connie?
We also done a sustainable agricultural program through UNCP. And I also done a lot of workshops and studies with AT University.
And was your family also
I was raised up on a farm. My mother and father had 13 children, so that's what farmers do. They have children to do the labor on the farm. And when we got married, I worked with Millard's daddy on the farm for several years, and then I went into to public work, and I retired in 2020 and come back to the farm full time. And he said, he took a job working with Lumpy Drive last October. So I'm on the farm full time, and I have 3 part-time workers on the farm.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you've incorporated indigenous farming practices into what you do here and how that's impacted your farm?
Yeah. Once we started regenerated agriculture, and I go back to what we've done on this land when I was a young boy, was like this field, each field on this land was used for different things. We actually raised peas for pea vine hay for the cows, and Les Petits hay, and hairy vetch, different patches in there. And once we got into agriculture, looking at the sustainable agriculture, I actually that was just cover cropping. Because especially, and I remember when we would harvest the Les Petits hay, that winter they would plant oats out here on it. And it'd go through the winter. Then that spring they would plant corn. So it's the whole aspect, the indigenous ways of farming was the same way that you do regenerative agriculture now. Cover cropping, putting nitrogen into the soil, then planting a crop in there to utilize that nitrogen. So it's reducing a lot of carbon because up to the 40s and 50s, most people had to use some type of manure or cover crop to get nitrogen into their soil for their crops. But it's just really relearning everything.
Excuse me, is that bird very audible?
You can hear the bird.
But not interfering at all with?
No, it just sounds like nature.
Sounds
Really.
like
Yeah.
dog barking too? Okay.
Yeah. No. So question.
This is great, guys, thank you.
Question. I did think about the bird, but it's consistent with her question too. Yeah. We'll play.
You're still rolling?
So we also want to hear about your experience working with students from UNC Pembroke. So how did that connection form, and why has that been important to you and your farm?
We actually, the original connection was that we attended Pembroke. We had took courses in sustainable agriculture. So Pembroke actually started a program themselves in sustainable agriculture. And we attended their course just to see if there was any additional knowledge we could gain. But once we attended the course, and Dr. Deborah Hammond and Dr. Rita Havocott actually seen that we were farmers, and we started forming a partnership then. So it's been developed in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
She manages all that now.
Yeah, because they'll come out several times a year. They'll come out and do work study, where they'll come and work on the farm for a length of time, and then I teach them about different aspects of farming, herbs and how they use the herbs, different things like that. That's the American Indian Studies group will come out and do that. And then we have the entomology group. They'll come out and study the insects that's on the farm, and they'll study how the insects impacts the plants on the farm. Each student will take a section of the farm, like the peas or the blackberries or the blueberries or the corn or the squash, and they'll do a season-long study to see what type of insects is in that crop and how it affects the production of that crop, positively and negatively, and what we can do to mitigate that insect.
Also, plant research.
Yeah, and they do the plant research on different plants, diseases, fungus and things like that. So they actually going to come out next week and do some study on some different plots and insects and things.
Okay. And so that's been important to you, passing on that knowledge to the college
Absolutely.
students. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Tell us why that's important to you.
It's important because we're aging. I'm 64. We're aging, and we need to pass this knowledge down to our younger farmers, and hopefully they'll come on into the field of farming because there's a lot to be learned.
Yeah, but one aspect that I learned and seen was that when they first started this sustainability program, they did not have a partnership with anybody. That's when we partnered with them. But also, once we went back and started doing a little bit of time with the students, we seen that, like she was saying, that they do research. They was doing on little plots of a bed in the garden. They didn't have a farm field to go to or vegetable field to go to.
Or they would have like a tray of plants in a flat, and they were doing studies on that. They didn't have a real working farm experience to come and do studies on.
Yeah, so it's a great aspect. The one that are hands-on experiences. So we had apprentices on our farm for the last 4 years. And still got them.
So the apprentices are all students from UNC Pembroke?
Yes. Well,
Most of them.
Yeah.
Right now we have 2 apprentices that work on the farm part-time, and they are, excuse me, they are out of the military. And some of them's looking into, one of them's looking into going into agriculture farming, and one of them's looking into going into psychology farming. So,
yeah.
And you also work with just your community here.
Yeah.
yeah.
Teaching younger people.
Yes.
Could you tell us more about that?
We have had several groups from daycares and our preschool and middle school from our church community come out and visit a farm and eat fresh vegetables straight off the bush or out of the soil. So they can not only see the difference, they can taste the difference when they come and pick on their own and eat fresh.
And what's it like seeing those kids interacting with
Oh,
their
it's just
farm?
absolutely a joy. I mean, it brings purpose to what you're doing. It makes you feel like you're accomplishing one of the goals that you set out, and that is for our kids to learn to eat fresh and eat healthier.
The one by the job that I have part time with the tribe is that it allows me to go to different events and see how other communities are living or how other communities improve themselves. So one event I went to in Fayetteville, I seen the Salvation Army and the Blue Cross Blue Shield and the YMCA, how they work with kids and everything. You know, the Lumbee Tribe's got a boy and girl club, so they got 600 kids in their boy and girl clubs. And so in the last year, I has put gardens in them clubs where the kids could go out and taste the food and actually prepare it and everything. And we had the Boys and Girls Club from Fayetteville and the Salvation Army Club come out to our farms, and they just toured it and everything. And it's amazing that the kids from the inner cities of Fayetteville that never been on farms, when they come out, we let them taste strawberries, blueberries, figs, carrots, and tomatoes. And the little kids, we've raised a special carrot. It's muddy color, so it's a finger carrot. And they like that more than anything.
How long do you hope to be running this farm as an ongoing operation?
Well, that's a good question. We was at the minority conference, and I got on the table to talk about my life to the young people there. And I was the youngest person sitting up there. So I was 63 at the time. So I told what I was my outlook in life. Excuse me. They started with the oldest person, and he was 85-year-old. They said it was right after Hurricane Florence, and he said, "Gentlemen, I lost flooding, lost a part of my herd of hogs, and my neighbor got flooded out. So I'm gonna reestablish my hogs and put in 5 more acres of grapes. He raised grapes because all farmers need muddy streams of income. And I sat there listening to him say, so I said to myself, it takes 5 years for them grapes to start producing. So he was planning 5 year out. And me and her's got a business plan. We look at a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year outlook. So then when it come down to Mr. Hurl, he was 73, and he raises humanely raised animals for this Kansas City cook-offs and visits and everything. And he said the same thing. He is going to double his herd of hogs. Again, all them gentlemen put in Maine. I said, well, then when it come to my turn, I said, well, I was thinking about quitting in 65 and everything, but I reckon I got it. And my mentor, Mr. Stanley Hughes, we talked to him 2 months ago. He's 85. He still gets up at 4:30 and hits the field. He asked me, son, did you stay at it? So, I do like my daddy. I picked him up out of the bed and put him in a wheelchair and put him on the trailer and let him drive it a while. So he spent his whole life here. My grandfathers, my great grandfathers, everything. So I have no plans of not being able to till this land.
And how has your Lumbee heritage influenced what you're doing here?
That's the heritage of the Lumbee tribes and everything is really the self-sustained. And I think that by me going to a lot of the annual tribal conferences and the American Indian Movement conferences and different things like that, by not being regulated like some of the tribes is, and it really shows out that the Lumbee tribe is self-sustainable. We raise our own food. We receive no government support for food, health care, anything like that. If all the food you receive comes from where you raise it, grow it, or work a job and get it.
And you have a choice, where some tribes don't have a choice.
Yeah.
They can't plant, they can't grow, and they can't raise cattle
Yeah.
to sustain themselves. They have to accept what's carried to them.
Yeah.
So they're limited to what they have. Where with the Lumbee tribe, we are not federally recognized, and we don't get government subsidies or money or anything like that. So we are at liberty to grow whatever we want.
Just one illustration, when I was at that conference, there's a tribe stated they raise 6 million chickens a year in their government project. And I was sitting there thinking that I got 3 first cousins up the road here. They do 26 million a year in their houses. It's the freedom to be able to progress yourself without restrictions. And that's the biggest aspect. And I feel that the Lumbee tribe will never allow restrictions to come on to the members to restrict our growth or personal growth. Because that always saying is you'll be what you want to be.
So I want each of you to answer this last question one and then the other, if that's okay.
Okay.
And I'd love to hear what you love most about this farm and what it means to you. Whichever one wants to start.
Okay, what I love about this farm and why it means so much to me is the heritage.
I'm sorry, could we hold off 1 second? There's a noisy truck.
You're calling.
Stand by 1 moment. And then if you could repeat your answer
Okay.
from the beginning.
What I love about this farm is the heritage, the lineage from one generation to the next. And I hope in my lifetime that I see one of my children step up and take on the legacy. And the thing that I love most about farming is planting and watching your crop grow and see the rewards and the benefits from it. And to be able to bless other people with that same food.
for me, like I say, this is my ancestor land and heritage and everything. And I could say this field here was actually their garden. They did everything as a family, as a community. The, Aunt Mary didn't have a garden. Dad didn't have, and nobody had an independent garden. This was a family garden. So I remember seeing my great grandfather laying up on this little bench up under this tree. My grandmother out here with us working this field. My grandfathers and my mothers and fathers and stuff. So there's a lot of ancestors of the land, and you sit here and see it, and you still, hey, that's the love. They worked hard for this. That gentleman landing on that bench is the one that bought this place. I didn't buy it. He worked hard to buy this land. So there's something that come off of his back to give to us.
And they made many sacrifices to keep it.
Yeah. I went out to Clayton, Georgia, where he first went down there, and the gentleman that owns that land told me the story how his grandfather come up here and offered him wages if you come down and work on my land and work in my forests of turpentine and run your sawmill in my forest to help me harvest timber. And that was in 1875. So my great-grandfather and his father went down there to work. My grandfather went down there. He wasn't even born at the time. His father was a young man that went down there to work, and then my great-grandfather was born down there. My grandmother was born in Florida and Georgia. And they took their money, come up here and bought this land. That was their ambition, come back to this county where their people's at and buy land here instead of staying down there.
I think that's all the questions that we have for you right now. Is there anything else you want to tell us about
Nah, that's good.
this farm?
Okay.
Got it.
Camera rolls?
Speedy.
Okay,
Okay.
we can get started.
Yep.
Okay.
When it says speed, we're good to go.
So the first thing we'll want to do is just have you introduce yourself. So say something like, I'll introduce myself to show you how
Okay.
to go about it. I'll say, I'm Senam, I'm a senior at UNC Chapel Hill. I major in this, and I'm from Northern Virginia. So,
Okay.
Marlena, can you say your name and introduce yourself?
Okay. I am Marlena Chifo.
Start again, look right at some,
Okay.
Yeah, only
So
person
you're-
who look
No
at
longer-
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just a conversation.
Okay.
between
All
me
right.
and you.
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
no worries.
I'm Marlena Chifo. I am from Red Springs, North Carolina, and I am an agricultural apprentice through the Center for Environmental Farming. And I've been doing this for about 2 years.
Can we do it one more time? That was a perfect answer, but just for me. I had something wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, ask the question again, so.
Could you introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Marlena Chifo. I'm from Red Springs, North Carolina. I am an agricultural apprentice for the Center for Environmental Farming, and I work here on New Ground Farm. I've been with the Locklears for about 2 years.
Awesome. What do you do on the farm?
Pretty much whatever needs to be done. I help plant, harvest, do the post-harvest handling, help fertilize, just anything that needs to be done pretty much. Maintenance.
How did you get into farming?
So I've always liked working outside, and I had a bit of a career change, and I was trying to finish up my bachelor's degree. So I went on the website for the school I was going to, and they had a job or an internship posted for Native American students who are interested in ag. So I applied. I had my interview, and they paired me up here with the Locklears. And then I just loved it. And so the people over at CEFS, they offered me the opportunity to go from the internship into an apprenticeship. And I just couldn't pass that down.
Cool. Can you talk about what it's been like working with the Locklears?
It's been like working with family. That's how it feels every day. It's nice. I mean, you're doing something different every day. It's never the same. And you have a general idea of what you're gonna do, but you just come out here and get it done.
How do you feel, about let me rephrase my question. What do you feel is the most important thing that the Locklears have taught to you?
How important it is to know how to grow your own food. So, you know, I mean, if you get in a situation where you can't go to the grocery store and buy stuff, you know how to grow your own food, you'll be okay. And then you can pass that on to your kids, and then they can pass it on to their kids, and you just keep it going. So, it's generational.
Do you think that your Lumbee identity has anything that plays into your role here on the farm?
I think so. I think that's where it, kind of it all started. Like, my mom, she grew up on, they had, a little homestead, but they didn't really have much money, so everything that they had, they'd go to the field and pick up, corn that was left after harvest, and then they would take it and use it to feed their animals, and then they'd kill their own animals and just grow their own food and just everything, that, I think that's where it started, and then spending so much time with my grandma and her doing all the same things, I wanted to keep it going. So, and that really plays a part in the Lumbee culture. So, you passing that on, and yeah.
I know you talked about how you're studying clinical mental health now.
Mhm.
Can you talk about the relationship between knowing how to grow your own food and mental well-being?
So I think food plays a big part in your overall health, your mental health, your just state of your body, and that plays into it. But also growing the food is therapeutic in itself, or just taking care of something is therapeutic. So that's my end goal, is to do farm therapy. So.
Can you, yeah.
I'm sorry? 1 second, I'm hitting that.
Okay. What is your connection to the Lumbee community?
So I was raised in a small little area that is, dominantly Lumbee. Went to elementary school, and I didn't go to school with anybody who wasn't Lumbee until I went middle school. I didn't know, that's all I knew. So, do you want me to relate that to the Lumbee community and stuff to what I'm doing here?
You can say whatever you want, Marlena. I'm not gonna put words in your mouth.
Well, I don't know what you want to hear exactly.
I think we just want you to say, I'm Lumbee.
Yeah, I'm Lumbee. I grew up, and I'm Lumbee. I grew up in a community that's dominantly Lumbee, and so, and then I worked in a place that it was away from here, and there was nobody else that was Lumbee there. And then so coming back here to work with people who feel like home, if that makes sense, it feels good. It feels really good. So, and then there's things that Miss Connie does, and that Miss Connie and Mr. Miller to teach me that is really important to the Lumbee community. There's so many herbs that she grows, and just so many different things. She has a plant that she'll take, and she'll scrape the ends off of it, and you can use them as paintbrushes. And that's important, because art's important to the Lumbee community, the Lumbee tribe. Or they have clay, and then she'll take the clay and use that and make different things. And it's not that I've done everything, but she tells me, and then that helps me just feel closer to my culture.
Awesome. What's your favorite thing about farming?
Being outside.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah. I don't like to sit at a desk and work all day and just twiddle my thumbs. I don't want to reply to 100 emails. And so out here, you just kind of get away from everything. And you have the rain, but the rain's okay sometimes. And then you have beautiful days, like it's been beautiful all week. And it's nice to be outside. You see animals. It's better than looking at four walls. So that's my favorite part.
And I know we touched on this in some of your other questions, but just so I can get a full sense of what it's like being here, like what do you love about working with the Locklears, and like what does it mean to you?
I come here, and like I said, it feels like family. I feel like they trust me to a certain extent, and I know they're family, and we're connected. Like all the people who go to the church that they go to, I know people who go to that church, and like I said, it just brings me back home. I'm emerged into this community. That's how I feel by working here versus somewhere else. And it's just like everybody's just connected. So.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
thank you. Oh, watch out.
Audio speeding.
Okay, I'm back again. This is a picture of my great-grandfather, Anderson Locklear. He was a farmer and also a professor at UNCP at Pembroke. And Locklear Hall was named in his honor.
Cut.
Got
Okay.
it. We'll do some light adjustment maybe.
Oh, yeah. Not a lot.
That's Bob's call. I'm not the light guy.
Crazy.
Miss Connie. Oh wait, can I? Okay. Do you have any photos of like the farm, like old photos of the farm, I guess, that are hanging up potentially?
No,
Okay.
like the aerial photos that they used.
I think on this one.
Speeding.
Okay, this is a picture of my great-grandfather, Anderson Locklear's wife,
Start
Miss.
again.
This is a picture
Hang on 1
of.
second.
Okay. This is a picture of my great-grandfather's second wife, Miss Catherine.
Good.
Great.
Do you potentially have any photos of like your grandfather, your father? Because I know you mentioned it in your interview.
almost 6 of them, Daddy.
Ready?
Camera rolls.
Speeding.
All right, so can you tell us about why you grow some of these herbs and their importance to medicine, things like that?
Why I grow the herbs that I grow is I grew up with a grandmother who taught us a little bit about herbs. And I've been studying on my own for the last 35 years, off and on, in between having children and grandchildren. When I got a moment, I studied. I went out in the field and I looked for my childhood memories of herbs that my grandmother taught me. And back in 2004, when I started public working, I got really sick. with allergies, asthma, all kinds of things. And I was on like 6 different medications. And it was just having a lot of adverse effects on my body. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's definitely a better way. God gave us a brain. He gave us plants to use, and I started really digging in and studying. And today, I'm 64 years old on no medication whatsoever. And I owe it all to God the Father, the Creator, and the medicine that He gave us natural. And one of the medicines that I go to is mullein. Mullein is a plant that grows along the roadside. It grows everywhere, but you don't want to gather your plants along the roadside because you don't know what they've been exposed to. You want to gather your plants from an area that you know. And this is what it looks once it's dried. And I just gather the whole leaf, I let it dry, and then I put it in a jar, and it'll keep for a long time. As you see, I've got a jar with a sealed ring, so that seals in the freshness. And if you look at my cabinet, it's a closed cabinet. So you don't want direct sunlight hitting your herb because that will deteriorate and take away your medicinal properties from your herb. Another herb that we grew up with was rabbit tobacco. And people say, rabbit tobacco, that's for animals. No, it's for people. My grandmother she would always use it for my sister who had asthma. And it tastes similar to tobacco, but it doesn't have the nicotine. And it's good for the lungs, it's good for intestinal parasites. And your lungs, when I say lungs, cold, cough, asthma, my grandmother would take this dried herb, she would put it in a sachet bag, and she would put it up under my sister's mattress where she slept. And that helped with the asthma. And the way you use this, you take it, put it in your mouth, chew it, and you want to swallow the juice. Because that's where your medicine's coming from. It's coming from the herb. It's not coming from just laying in your mouth. Yes, you do get some of the effects, but the full effect is when you mix your natural juices of your body and it goes back into your body.
And really quick, just for audio purposes, could you say what it helps for again? Because you touched the mic when you did it.
It's good for upper respiratory, allergies, asthma, intestinal parasites.
Thank you.
And do you use your herbs here to teach other people about?
I do.
Okay, can you tell us more about that?
Usually when, like we talked earlier about the work-study students, this is what we do. We walk around the farm and I show them indigenous plants that we use for medicine. Even when I worked in the public schools, every opportunity that I had, I was teaching them about natural medicine. I was teaching them about nature and you know, to be observant, to look at your surroundings and see what's going on in the creation around you.
And are there any here that are traditionally like Lumbee specifically?
Not to my knowledge. I mean,
Be aware of the mic.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. To my knowledge, there is like the pine needles. They made pine needle tea, just as a relaxing tea, and for medicinal purpose, as I said, for intestinal parasites, lung asthma, cough. Wild cherry bark. That is a traditional Lumbee medicine. And you use the inner bark to make a tea for the colds, flus, things of that sort. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions from you?
Well, there were a couple other herbs.
Yeah, do you want to show us some more?
And if I can just make one suggestion, Connie?
Yes.
you don't have to project all the way out to Maggie here because your mic is like right there. So you don't have to raise your voice at all.
And I guess that's a habit because I'm hearing impaired
Oh.
in both. I'm
Me
hearing
too.
impaired in both ears. I do have hearing aids, but I try in an environment with a lot of people. I try to keep the volume low. Okay.
That's what my wife says to me, that she's always yelling because I go, what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another thing I grow is echinacea. Echinacea is another herb that we use for allergies, flus, colds, things of that nature. One that is not traditional Native American, and I don't know its origin, is skullcap. And I grew, oh gosh, lots this year because it is very expensive if you have to buy it. And it's good for stress, anxiety, depression. It's a good relaxant. Mixed with other herbs, it's a good tea to help you relax at night and get a good night's sleep. Oh. Ashwagandha, I think, is indigenous from India, and it's another herb that's used for stress and anxiety. And I also take a lot of these herbs and I make tinctures. One is a rosemary tincture, ashwagandha tincture, and these are taken internally to help build stamina, which there is the ashwagandha macramating in vodka. And I use vodka because the high alcohol content in vodka pulls all the medicinal properties out of the herb. Some people who shy away from alcoholic beverage use apple cider vinegar, but it's not as strong and it won't pull as much of the medicinal properties out of the herb as vodka will. I also do mullein, the mosquito, I do deep lung. This is with olive oil, and this is something that you rub on your back and your shoulder blades for lung congestion and things of that sort. I do lots of different things for whatever ails you. Echinacea root, chaga mushroom.
Please.
Oh.
I just cut. Pulse.
Speed.
All right, go ahead and tell us about what you've got.
Okay, we're going back to mullein again. And this is another thing that we can use mullein for. And it's for atopic arthritis pain medicine. Using just green alcohol and the mullein herb. Let it sit for 8 weeks in a jar, strain it, put it in a spray bottle, spray arthritic hands, sore muscles, aching muscles. That is really good for that.
Okay. Cut. We're rolling just for close-ups. You can set it back down.
Okay.
And then you pick up the other one briefly, the other mullein. Yeah, hang on, put it back. There we go. And pick it up. Just hold it. Put it back down. Good. So. And put your hands by your side, please. Good. Okay, put them back on the jars like you had. Perfect. Okay.
Speed.
All right, Connie, can you tell us about your personal interest in agricultural education and the specific initiatives that you've taken on to kind of pass down some of that knowledge?
Well, my personal interest in farming is to keep the family farms going and to keep the heritage farms going and to plant and raise good, healthy food in a sustainable way. We're standing by a collard field, and these collard plants is Morris Head collards. They were produced, how would you say it, Millard? They were germinated and produced by Eddie Morris out of Maxton. And over on the edge of the field, we've got another type of collards, which is a Lottie collard, which come over with some of the slaves from Africa. They would weave the seeds into their clothes, into their beadwork. They would do anything to bring their native foods with them. So that's where the Lottie collard come from. And we're trying to grow and raise seeds to reproduce those collards in larger amounts.
Okay. And can you tell us about some of the other things that you're growing on this farm?
Some of the other things that we're growing right now, we have sugar cane, which we will cut in November. And we'll crush it and get the juice out of it and cook it down and make syrup. We have mustard greens, Easter egg radish, watermelon radish, turnips, mustard, kale, cabbage, collards, broccoli. That's what we're growing right now on the farm. And we're in the process of, next week we'll dig our last planting of sweet potatoes.
And how did your career as a teacher influence your interest in passing on your agricultural knowledge and also just as a mom?
Well, when I worked in the public schools of Robinson County, and you know, you sit in these small groups and you work with children about reading books. And one of the books that we read, Mommy and I went to the grocery store, and they got potatoes and carrots and you know, the regular grocery. And the kid said, "What is a potato?" "We don't know what." I said, "Baby, you eat French fries, don't you? You eat mashed potatoes." I said, "That's potatoes. But how does it grow?" And that instilled in me to educate these children beyond reading, writing, and math. So I put in an outdoor classroom at school, and we grew food that they got to look at. They got to help plant. They got to help take care of it. They got to look at it. I couldn't cook it and prepare it for them. I could cook it and prepare for the staff, but not the students. But that instilled a lot of knowledge in those children about planting and growing. And quite a few of them went home and nudged their parents into doing container gardens, square foot gardens, raised beds. A lot of them came back to me year after year. "We're growing so-and-so, we're growing so-and-so." And every year on Earth Day, I would take the whole school and each one of them would plant their individual plant. And they carried it home, they nurtured it, they'd take pictures of it and bring it to school and show it to me. So, you know, that was one of the ways that I feel that knowledge is going to go on to the next generation.
All right, I think that's all the questions we have for you right now. Anybody else have one?
On this field in particular, I know you guys mentioned like polycultures and stuff. Do you use that here, or is that in like another field?
That's right
We're gonna go
across
back to
over
that.
where the tall pecan trees is
Okay,
at.
cool.
We'll talk a little bit about that over there,
Okay.
I think.
Cool. Got it.
Camera rolls.
Speeding.
Okay, so can you just tell us like a little bit about what you're growing here?
Okay, this variety of collard is called a Lottie collard. And we've had some people do some research behind where the seeds came from. And when they done the research, they think the seeds came from Africa. They came over the water with the slaves. And when it went to Florida, then moved on up to South Carolina, North Carolina. We had a family in Fairmont and Latta that grew these collards, and for 30, 40 years, the seeds were just kind of laying around, not getting planted, got lost. And in the last 3 years, they've become a hot commodity. So we're growing these plants on this row to grow out for seeds, to be able to share and get the plant species repopulated back. I've seen these collard plants grow, and they will be huge, like 20-pound. Yes, huge. But our plans is to grow these out for seeds to be able to share.
So yeah, I know you said like you're growing them out and stuff, but is there like any other kind of reason why you're growing them? I guess?
To get the seed population back to growing, where it can become more popular than having just one, like Georgia collard. For all my life, just about until after I got married, probably 30 years, everybody grew Georgia collards, and then we had the Morris Head collards. Eddie Morris out of Maxton propagated those, and he started growing. So we grow a lot of Morris Head collards. So we're trying to bring the popularity back to the Lottie collard because of the native and indigenous background too, and the taste. It's really good collard.
So will you be selling to kind of local farmers or just like out area?
We sell locally. We sell wholesale to Fresh Point, and they supply to restaurants, university systems, and you know.
One more question. Airplane okay?
Airplane's okay for now.
Who consumed these collards back 200 years ago? So you can fill it in yourself, okay? Yep, stay rolling.
Okay. Yeah, so you mentioned kind of the history behind the plant, so I guess we were just wondering, like, who exactly were these collards, like, grown for? Who was growing these collards, like, 200 years ago-ish, I guess?
Most of our black population was growing these collards, and it was told to us that they come about being named the Lottie collard because everybody had Aunt Lottie, and that it was told to us that that's why it was called the Lottie collard, because somebody's Aunt Lottie grew a lot of them and they liked them.
Let's get that one more. That was a perfect answer, but just had some the plane and some wind. So in just a moment, when things die down, I'll have you say that answer again.
It's military, so it's going to be a while. It just cut.
Okay, got it.
And camera rolls.
Speedy.
Okay, so you mentioned kind of the history behind the plants, so I was just kind of wondering who exactly was growing these plants, like 100, 200 years ago.
Most of the plants was grown by our black population, mostly on plantations. As we know, they come over on ships as slaves, and they were bought for large plantation owners for workers. But they grew it on their farms, and it was we were told that it was named Lottie because almost everybody's got an Aunt Lottie. So, and Aunt Lottie always grew those collards. So that's we were told that's where the name came from, a Lottie collard.
Okay.
Great.
That's great. You can walk away.
Alright.
for rolls?
Speeding. And am I out of frame here?
You're not out of frame there, because I'm
Not
shooting.
out of
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Right there.
This right here?
Yep. Okay.
Go on.
All right, Connie, can you tell us about where we are right now and what you're growing here?
Right now, we are in the permaculture garden where I've tried to do companion planting. And companion planting is when you plant a certain bush, fruiting tree, you're going to plant herbs or something that will help put nitrogen in the soil, help protect the tree from insects. And on this particular apple tree, I have planted comfrey. This is the comfrey. And I've planted chives. The comfrey is going to help add nitrogen to the soil and aerate the soil because it has a huge root system. And the chives is to deter insects from coming to the tree and going to your fruit.
And where does this practice come from?
Actually, I think most Native Americans done integrated planting because most everybody's heard about the Three Sisters Garden, where you planted the corn and the beans and the squash. The corn stalk grew tall. The beans used the corn stalk as a trellis. And the squash kept the ground low to the ground, kept the ground cool, and it kept the roots of the other plants cool, kept the heat off of it. Plus, also, your beans are going to add nitrogen to the soil that will feed the corn and the squash.
All right, anything else?
R-E-Y. C-O-N-F-R-E-Y. And it's also an herb. I don't use it a lot,
Okay.
but it's also an herb. You can use the leaf and the root,
Oh,
but mostly the root.
okay.
And the chives. The chives are hardy. They will survive through. This has been out here. This is the third year, so they've started reproducing quite a bit. I only put like 2 or 3, 4 or 5 sprigs around each tree, so you see how it's reproduced.
Would you tell us how the chives taste?
The chives taste onion garlicky, delicious, and they got to be good for you. And these are the seed heads, so if somebody wants to grow chives, there you go.
Action!
The seasons, and we're gonna pick these probably Monday, and that's gonna be the last time because you see there's not many blooms left on it, so they're about almost done for the season. And here's our other predator.
Wow, those look like eyes on the top too.
Yeah, grasshopper.
Ooh, these are beautiful spiders right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a garden spider.
Garden spiders.
Mm-hmm. So we want to pick this one.
The red ones?
Mm-hmm.
Eyes on simple.
Yep. And the stink buds is another one.
Stop. And action. Looking it over, and pick it. Perfect, let's do another one. You pick it up and look at it for a little bit and then pick it. Ready, go. Looking at it, and pick it. Pick them if you want to. Okay, walk on past me, please.
Walk on past you this way.
I want to get the cat in the shot.
Somebody else said it.
I'm a geography major. And Erica is a professional.
I'm only 25. So. Oh, word. I'm 26, but I'm just getting a second undergraduate degree now.
Good for you.
Hey, my name's Unme Rokiasami. I'm a junior at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, and there I'm getting an American Indian Studies degree with a minor in creative writing.
Yeah. So, what was like the class / project that like brought you to New Ground Farms initially?
So my first semester at Pembroke, I took Intro to American Indian Studies, and they have like a kind of community project every semester. And so for the semester I took it, we came to New Ground Farms and we got to take a tour, meet Connie and Millard, and they had some guests too, and they talked a lot about different things that they were growing here and stuff about farming.
Yeah. So what were like some of the things you saw growing? Like, yeah.
So whenever I came, we got to see some sweet peppers growing, some okra, which was really cool because it's different than any okra I've ever seen, so I really enjoyed that. We saw some sweet potatoes, figs, dragon fruit. We saw some bees. Oh my gosh. And then at the end of it, Miss Connie even pulled some tree sap off and was chewing it like gum.
So, yeah, what part of like the tour has like kind of stuck with you the most?
What stuck with me the most really was more of the talking. Obviously, I'm pretty familiar with plants, so they talked a lot about like one of the things I took away was Mr. Millard talking about how this was land that he inherited, and I didn't, knowing the history of farming in Robeson County, I just didn't realize that it was something that some people were still continuing to do. So that was really my introduction to seeing that there's still Lumbees here that are using this land in an agricultural manner. And then, I got taught that we in Mexico, corn actually had to be invented, essentially. Like, corn wasn't going to happen naturally, and it came from teosinte. And so the farmers in Mexico, the indigenous people, they essentially took teosinte, which was a grass, I believe, and they kind of like genetically kept planting it until it turned into corn. And so we got to see a lot of different dried corn species. And then I really enjoyed listening to how Miss Connie still does herbal work here. And so she works with natural medicines, and that's something that, especially in Robeson County, this place had so much biodiversity in plant species here, so there were lots of medicines that were practiced here pre-contact. And so just knowing that, Mr. Millard and Miss Connie in their own way through this farm are having that sort of cultural continuity was really, really uplifting to learn about.
Earlier when you said like the history of farming in Robco, can you elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, so in the earlier 1900s and the mid 1900s, Lumbees were part of sharecropping, and so sharecropping was a practice where somebody owned a farm and then they would hire somebody to actually work that land, and they did not get paid very much, and instead got compensated with food, which still was not sustainable for them. And so obviously in that kind of light, Lumbees didn't really get to really benefit as much from the work that they were doing for themselves and for their community, even though we found our own ways to do that, and we still stuck together and had strong ties through the ways that we all were working land together. But farming for us then was just like I said, it was a cultural continuance of something that we did pre-contact. So in the Southeast, we're farmers. I believe Miss Connie's talked about the Three Sisters. That's something that we were doing here, and we farmed here as well as hunting. And so the fact that there are still people that are farming now, because whenever sharecropping got introduced, essentially there were Lumbees that got turned off from farming, that didn't like to farm because it was really our only facet of where we could work. So just knowing that there are people that still care about that practice enough, or not even care about, just that there are still people that are connecting to the land in that way, and still see it in that light, and continue to work the land in an agricultural manner, is really nice.
Yeah, I think like in the pre-interview or whatever, you like mentioned how seeing other like Lumbee people continue like to farm and stuff like really impacted you as a person, and I was just wondering on like if you could explain like how that was so meaningful to you.
Yeah. So it was really meaningful to me because obviously colonization has changed the ways that we have access to food, and it changes the food that we have access to, and it has the diet that people have in Robeson County, because of what's accessible to us, is not as good as it was whenever we were farming and we were eating straight from the land, and we were producing our own meat straight from the land. And so it's really meaningful for me that there's still people farming, because that's the best kind of food that's out there. And it comes straight from us, and I really love that. And so instead of, pulling up to getting fried foods, getting fried chicken, getting, fried potatoes all the time, just that there's somebody out here that, if I want to get some fresh peppers, well, I can just come down here, get some fresh peppers, get some vegetables in my diet, get some fruit in my diet that's not necessarily accessible, or maybe not be, financially a choice for some people. Like, I'm all for fresh farmed eggs, so there are other people that farm around here that I'll go get, eggs from too. And it's just like, the value in that food for me is incredibly important, because it's food that's not going through an exploitative process, and it's food that's not being controlled in the manner that colonization has really taken control of these food systems. And so, I want to be able to grow my own food, and so coming out and seeing and building relationships with people who are farming just gives you that fuel to, well, I feel like that's something that I want to continue to work for, and there's somebody I can learn from. There's a support system out there, and there's still people out there that are continuing knowledge that we've had for thousands and thousands of years, and so it's always something that I have been interested in. So having the opportunity through a class to actually come here and see the people doing it and see the farm where it's happening, gives you that like connection. That's like, okay, well, there's this place here that I know exists because I've seen it. I've talked to these people and I know what they're about. Gives me fuel to continue to create the future that I want as an Indigenous person.
Yeah, so I think earlier you were talking to Millard about something that you guys are doing. Can you like explain that?
Oh yeah, so there's a group that the tribe has created through a fund that the Lumbees have gotten through the Indian Collective, and it's called the Culturally Responsive Group for Environmental Justice. And so through that group, we have various workshops, and so we've had workshops on Indigenous archiving. We're about to have one. We had one recently on the quality of the water in the Lumbee River. We're about to have one on like drinking water quality, and then we're gonna have more on like forestry and the land, and we're just talking about the different things that are happening around Robeson County that impact our environment, such as meat processing industry. The meat processing industry is a huge thing that we talk about here because there's so many chicken and hog farms that end up polluting our rivers. And that's not something that everybody even necessarily knows about. And there are pollutants in our rivers that people don't even know exist. And the point of the work of the group is to have.
You have to stop.
Oh, no worries.
The siren.
Let's cut.
Yeah, cutting.
Sweet. So that group essentially at the end, we're having experts come talk about different things in the environment to inform people within the community. It's a pretty small group of just community members, so that at the end of it we can start to really write up things that we want to see done and ways that we as Lumbee people can start to have more of a voice in what happens in our land, and you know, just advocating in the ways that that affects us.
Okay. And in like maybe around 2 sentences, can you tell me like why you think the kind of like the partnering with UNCP and stuff like that, and like teaching students and stuff is important?
Yeah. So in Robeson County, sometimes, especially for me growing up, I just didn't have the opportunities to know about my culture in the way that I should have been able to. And so having partnerships like this just give that specific kind of connection where the younger generation can see what the older generation is doing and start to really see how important that is for our culture, and maybe orient the ways that they want to go about the rest of their life. And being very critical about that as an Indigenous person.
I got it. Thank you.
Wait, Bob, we weren't plugged in. I recorded the whole thing in the back, but could you clap in front of your face really quick?
Yeah.
Did you cut?
Pose.
Speeding.
Action.
Hello, we're planting some.
No, no.
Oh, you
Put it
just
back.
do it.
No,
you
no
just
talking.
Do it.
We're not here. Nobody's here.
Okay.
Nobody's here.
You're just
on
working.
your own.
You're
Okay.
working by yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Ready? Look down. Action. Stop. Hold, stand by, please.
Speeding.
Action. Stand by. Cut.
The sound was bad.
Camera rolls.
Speeding.
And action. Cut.
Cutting.
Camera rolls.
Speeding.
Action. So, and I'm asking, cut. You don't rolls
Speeding.
and action. Cut.
Cutting. They haven't gotten the clean
I know.
portion of it.
Just got-
Sorry. Speeding.
All right, Miller, can you tell us why you took on this role as the Lumbee Tribe Agricultural and Natural Resources Department Director?
When I read you know, the qualification requirements for the job and everything, the American Indian Movement funds that come there, they wanted a person that is raised on a farm, not institutionally trained to be farmers, but a person that's come up through the generations. So the chairman approached me and asked me would I apply for that job. Some of the past things that I had done with the Center of Armament Farming at AT University. So I applied for it and I got the job and everything. So it's a big aspect of how do we improve the local farmers and the new systems of farming and work with our community to bring in food systems in.
And why is this job really important to you? What does it mean to you?
Well, it goes back to how we, you know, I've been through different institutions, meetings and stuff. I've seen that 90% of some of the diabetes and obesity could be trained and solved through the diets of people. In the last year, when we're doing these visions of food and stuff, we see that most of the people that gets institutional food, which is produced in mass quantities, there's no nutrition value in that food. Just something, a filament.
So you're doing this for the community?
Yes, it's strictly for the, mostly for the community. And as you know, it's a sacrifice here on the farm that by not being here 100% to do my job on the farm.
And can you tell us a little bit more about what it means to you to be farming this land that's been in your family for generations?
Well, like I said earlier, I think that this land was raised and got off the backs of my previous ancestors. It's the hard work that they done. And then how you instill to somebody, hey, this is what I would like for you to accomplish, and carry it on to the next generation. And you know, it's say the ancestor legacy that they leave from one person to the next person. And I think that by being here on my ancestral land, that it means a lot to me.
That's good.
And let's get some all of
Camera rolls.
Speeding.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to hear your what you were kind of doing with Ume that you mentioned. You guys were talking earlier yesterday.
Yes, OME is part of the 5S aspects that I'm looking at. You know, the biggest thing is concerned how the climate change is affecting everything. It's affecting our drinking water. So I applied to the Center of Environmental Farming Systems and Urban Development. We got a grant to look at the ways that how the previous industrial waste has really affected our wetlands. Since wetlands has been known, our river has a high contents of arsenic lead in it. Our drinking water has a lot high contents of different plastic forms, PFA, PFAA, something like that there. So we just going around and meeting with the different communities and teaching the people how we need to go about bettering ourselves for health through the water we drink. And everything, because there's a large amount of people in Robeson County that got bladder cancer or kidney failures. And so that's one of the things we're looking at, and see if we can improve the health for our people, that aspect. Then we'll move over to the different exposure for wastes from the large scale chicken houses, commercialized chicken houses, hog houses, and different things out there. We're going to be looking at that too.
Okay.
Cuddy.
Okay. All right, here we go, guys. Action!
Earlier, we had 2 plants, and I said, well, when I seen that, I'd take them right there. Got 2 plants, I'd take them and leave them.
Okay.
Action. Action. We're good?
I'm Sanam. What's up? I'm Inay. Nice to meet you. Inay, not Inay. Yeah, no.
this around. It's heavy.
This is site's fine. And then, on your right, okay. Tell us what you're growing. I'll try not to. These two questions at once. He's good about that. Good.
Okay.
You want to hook up, Mr. Eric?
Not particularly.
That's okay. Well, we don't have any audience.
And you want me on the right of the camera?
Please. You look at Maggie, please. Quit reading. You're a ninja.
That's just a natural
Ninja
instinct.
weeder.
I get close to
Can't
the ground,
stop.
I'm looking for weed.
You want to come to my house?
Yeah.
Diseased leaves didn't fall down to the soil and infect the soil. So what we're doing, we pulled out all the plants and we put them on the burn pile to be destroyed. Making sure that we didn't leave any, trying to make sure we didn't leave any residual laying around because it will overwinter unless it gets real cold.
And did you get rid of the tarp too?
No, the tarp's fine. They said, the tarp's fine. You can keep the tarp. We fold it and store it for the next season.
I think, are
Ready
we
to go?
ready?
Ready?
Okay.
Are you good with your...
Oh, Barbara, this will be some time.
I'll fix to lay down. What's up, baby?
Good. This cat will disappear soon. So. You good with your booty?
I am good.
Camera rolls?
Speeding. And am I out of frame here?
You're not out of frame.
Ways that the communities were structured were like vertically, like up the mountain.
Oh, the vertical, yeah.
And so like people, it was basically like the way that birds find their ecosystem in trees, like and stuff too. And so like people at the bottom of the mountain did a certain thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe they were like did agriculture, and then like in the middle of the mountain was different. And they were talking about mountain.
Like that. Where people would be stepping and...
I eat it. Yeah. We all eat it.
Okay. Come on back. Come back to
Wow, this is like
top.
And see, that's where all of our bed plants and stuff goes. Look at all those tomato plants. Because we got all kind of stuff in there.
And are you recording off the inboard mic?
Yeah,
Okay. Because every piece of B-roll you want audio, for sure.
yeah.
No B-roll without audio.
Ask for more. Let's see if I can get one. Come here. I'll kill myself.
Don't do that.
Right.
Alright, bring that grasshopper over here.
Okay. Want to see my hands or something?
Yeah, show me what you got. It actually does a really good job of picking that up.
Nice.
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit more about the partnership between UNCP and Pembroke?
Yes. In general, or in agriculture, or how do you feel about that? Sorry.
I mean, anything you want to talk about. I think in agriculture would be helpful.
Yeah,
If New Ground
yeah.
is, helpful in any other ways, we'd love to hear about it.
Ask for more. Let's see if I can get one. Come here.
That too.
Definitely. So, Well, UNCP was founded because of Pembroke and the Lumbee tribe and the community here as a school to educate teachers for elementary school and some of your basic sciences. And then it's just grown from there until eventually it became part of the UNC system. So you can't talk about UNCP without talking about the Lumbee tribe in Pembroke. There are several ways that the Lumbee tribe and UNCP mesh together. When it comes to agriculture, there are opportunities. For example, the Lumbee tribe just received a large grant not too long ago, of which Millard Locklear is heading and conducting the research associated with it. Pembroke is just a wonderful little town, and it is mainly members of the Lumbee tribe that live here. It has a very long history along with UNCP, so they're mirrored in a lot of ways. And sorry, this is a challenging question that you just asked me. I think that we always strive at UNCP to figure out ways to connect more with the town of Pembroke and the Lumbee tribe. It's not always easy because you need to find those opportunities and how to do that. Sometimes we do really well, and sometimes we don't do as well as we want to.
Yeah. So where does New Ground kind of fit into that picture?
Well, New Ground Family Farm fits into a lot of pictures, and that's what makes them very special. They are the model of small farming in Pembroke. Not only do they make their living on just a few acres, figuring out really amazing sustainable ways to produce most of the year, but they attend every talk on sustainability. They attend every event associated with agriculture. I've never seen anyone try to improve themselves so much as New Ground Family Farm. If I'm considering going to a conference, they have been to 10 more conferences that month and will be attending the one I want to go to. It's astounding, and it's clearly a work of passion for them. I know that Millard inherited this property from his father, and his father was very specific in what he produced, and what he grew wasn't necessarily healthful for him. And I think that Millard attributes a lot of that lack of diversity and lack of diversity in crop production to a failure of his father's health. So Millard really wants to come in and grow a wide variety of crops, highly nutritional crops, in a sustainable way. And the interesting part about his sustainability approach, we can all talk about sustainability, but if it doesn't make a profit, it's not sustainable. And that is the biggest art of trying to grow and work with the land, but also make a profit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how often would you say that UNCP students come out to the farm?
We're always out here twice a year for sure for classes. We come out here for other events that Millard holds as well. Sometimes for a lab, we're out here multiple times in a semester. So we've just gotten our own ag research site, which is really awesome for UNCP and our ag program. But even though we now can hold a lot of those labs on that site, we're not doing them without Millard and Connie Locklear, because they will be over there advising us and helping us. And they're really kind of our voice and connection to the community as far as farmers go in Pembroke. So ideally, when we're looking at the work that we're going to do at our research site, we want to have a listening session with all the small farmers to find out what their concerns are and what they would like us to do. And Millard and Connie are the pinnacle of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'd also like to say that not only are they incredibly hard workers, not only do they spend a huge amount of time on education for their farm, they're also the loveliest and sweetest of people. And that is so important, because you can be on point in so many things you do, but if you're not gracious and forgiving and easy to work with, you've lost so much of what you're trying to create. and they just ring every bell.
Definitely. Yeah. So why do you think it's valuable for students to come out here and kind of get that hands-on experience?
It's valuable for them to come out here because this is a working, successful farm. And everything that we talk about in class theoretically, they can see it in action out here. And we do a lot of experiments and small stuff. See that, it's really important. And then to have, Millard and Connie are just great about tours. They will take you around to everything they're growing, tell you how they amended the soil, how they shape their beds, what their challenge is with that crop right now, weeding issues. So yeah, this is real life farming. And that's why it's important for students.
Yeah. Do you think the students walk away with like the same impression of farming as you kind of get from the farm?
I think that they do, and they love Connie and Millard, and every time they come out here, and the way they make this working farm so accessible to them. So yes, I think so, but you would have to ask them that.
Yeah, definitely. There we go.
I'm sorry.
No,
No
you're all
worries.
good. I just want to make sure we get
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah, I think they do a lot of editing. I'm not speaking very concisely, so always stop me and tell me to repeat it in a concise way if you like.
Yeah,
This is great.
This is awesome.
Okay.
The more we
I'm
have
a
to-
rambler. Okay, great.
Yeah, no, rambling is perfect.
Okay.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, we want you to talk exactly how you talk like normal. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
So is it usually like this when you guys come out here, or would you say this is kind of like more of a transition season? And how does that kind of change what the students do on the farm?
Sure. In North Carolina, we grow in the spring and we grow in the fall. In the summer, we're just trying to maintain what we have so we can extend our harvest, or we're trying to get plants in sooner. Middle of the summer is just extremely hot for anything outside of field crops. So this is a perfect time. I don't think it's in transition. I think this is a very active time on the farm. So those are the two opportunities that we really, and it plays well with our semesters. We have a spring and a fall. So oftentimes people may notice that there's something in the garden at UNCP that's not growing, or it's kind of, quiet, and that's because it's 100 degrees outside and there's very few things that are going to not only survive but then produce an edible, wonderful crop for you. So
Yeah, definitely. And then I was also going to ask a little bit about the farming practices that they use out here. Are you familiar with like some of the practices like polyculture or other things like that? Can you explain kind of like how some of these practices work and why they work so well?
Sure. I think you're always wanting to maximize your space and increase your diversity of crops. So polyculture works really well with that. It works with intercropping, so you could plant a crop such as radishes in between collard greens or cabbage, and by the time your collard greens or cabbage are really starting to grow and utilize their space, that radish is already there to harvest. So you can use that space and then get it out of the way and just maximize your crop yield. Cover cropping is a big practice that they use out here, so they will grow a crop. The important part of a cover crop is that it's not a cash crop. So you grow it and then you kill it and you turn it back into the soil or leave it on top of the soil to act as a mulch, and you plant directly in it. Those practices increase your organic matter in your soil, increase your soil microbial community, and creates an overall healthy soil. So cover cropping, polyculture, they do a wonderful job here with the hoop houses behind me. So hoop houses are very important for agriculture because It allows you to get a jump on the season. You can start growing things early and get your crop to harvest maybe a month before anyone else who's not using it, so you can command a very high price. So that's where your farmers are going to make their money. Then extending your season in the winter, so you grow everything, and then if you're growing it in a high tunnel, then you can keep the frost off it for much longer and keep your tomato crop going, or your strawberries or something like that. So they use their high tunnels in a very smart way. You'll notice they don't invest in greenhouses. Right? So everything they have is high tunnels. So they're really looking for that passive cooling and that passive heating. So they're not having to use gas or electricity to create this artificial growing environment. They really work with the sun and their alignment on their houses to get the maximum effect.
Yeah, she gave us some really great information about how they're kind of mapping the microclimate, and they're planning on growing some radishes back in a pocket where it's a little bit warmer, and then some other things where it's a little cooler.
Yeah, they understand crop rotation, and they understand how the soil is different and the microclimates all over their farm are different. So that takes a while to really figure out as well. So not only do you have to identify that you have these microclimates, then you have to find your crop rotation within that microclimate and make sure that it matches a demand for the market, and then a huge amount of timing and pests and what pests are around. So it's quite a juggle.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine. I mean, it sounds like it. I don't know. I'm not somebody who ever spent much time on a farm.
Yeah.
So it's like, I would go out with my parents and we'd pick berries in Oregon. You spend one day doing that, and then that was it. You don't realize how much goes into it until you're out here.
Exactly. Yeah. And Oregon has such a different climate and market associated with it. I mean, that Willamette Valley does them a lot of favors. And it's both climate-wise and soil-wise, but that's Oregon. We're talking about North Carolina, but
yeah. So what's the climate like out here? How does it make a difference?
It's hot and humid, but we get plenty of rain. That's really nice. So many of my students think that Oregon and Washington State gets more rain than North Carolina, when in fact we get much more rain than them. We just get it throughout the year, to where they're more limited into their cooler months. And their summers are very dry there, which makes it great for them, so they can grow so many wonderful fruits, and they don't have to worry about excess rain in the summer making their fruit swell that dilutes their sugars, and nobody wants that, especially when you think about wine. For us here, we have a longer growing season. Oregon grows in the summer, we grow in the spring and the fall, right? So I think that's probably one of the biggest differences. And along with that comes a whole different set of weeds and pests that are challenging. I'd say humidity is a big challenge for us here. You can have high humidity that that promotes disease on your leaves and your crops, but not get the rain when you want it to go into the soil to actually grow your crops. So water can be a problem even when you're not getting it in the form of rain.
Yeah. Yeah, so, a little bit more about the students. After coming out here and taking the agricultural classes, do you generally feel like they're well prepared to go into a career in agriculture?
So I really feel like they're very prepared. I think it's because I feel like I have such a big responsibility on my shoulders to give them a very wide education and make sure that all of the wonderful things that I learned in my education through a land-grant university, I can relay to them. I don't take any of that for granted when I have them in front of me. One of the most exciting things working in plant breeding, becoming their own small farmer, working for seed companies. There's so many things that they can do that had they been helps me so much when we do things and when we talk and regular themes that come up through similar classes, and their mind latches onto it. It makes sense for them. I think they're very prepared. But you also have a good education combined with a very motivated student who's passionate about what they're doing. So there's a lot of things that come into play there. Now, if you want to learn and you want to have an emphasis in one specific area, there's so many areas of study with land-grant universities that the opportunities for you to study very narrow fields is huge, okay? But you can lose sight of many fundamental growing practices that a very general education gives you. So I think that's the benefit. We just really want to graduate people who are prepared for graduate school. Really, put that in my back pocket, can you?
Yeah, I could do that real quick.
I have nervous tics, and that's one of them.
All good. Is it back on?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
No, you're perfect.
I just want to make sure we're getting what you're saying.
Yes.
This is great.
Okay.
Yeah, this is great stuff.
Yeah, we want to make sure that people are going to graduate from our program and they're able to go to graduate school, go work for a company, and they know what's going on from the ground floor up, or they can graduate and be farmers. And if we haven't done that, then we've failed somehow.
Yeah. Do you have any of your graduated students that have a farm that looks, something like this, something a little different that you know about?
So I have a few students that have graduated, not many because we're still a new program. Several of them do go to graduate school. We're very good at getting people into graduate school. That's not a challenge, but there are a few that grow in their family's properties. Maybe they have an acre or two, and that's really what we want to stress. Most any business that you find that's successful, that started grassroots, started with 1 acre or 1 greenhouse. And that's why it's so easy to get into. I'm not saying that in itself is not expensive, because it is, but they all start with 1, and then they have 5, and then they have 10, and then they have 100. And you can do that with cut flowers, vegetables, ornamental production, anything you want. So some do have small farms. Some stay at UNCP to get their master's or MBA and still take my classes. So that's one challenge really when you think about agriculture, is so many of the other careers may want you to have a master's degree. So that's one reason that they stay longer, because not everyone can leave and go to another university to get their graduate degree. They can't leave their homes, their support systems, their jobs, the babysitters. We're in a very different type of family unit now that we haven't been in. At least 30 years ago we weren't in. So everyone's thinking about everything differently. And that's why it's so important to have agriculture here in Pembroke.
Do you see that as being something kind of community oriented too? I know that there's a really big Lumbee population here and Lumbee population at UNCP. I'm wondering if if you think at all that kind of changes what the students are interested in learning and how they can take it back home.
Definitely. There's a lot of interest in medicinal plants, and there's a big business in that. And I think that the Lumbees and people in Pembroke have a history of growing their own plants for medicine. And if you talk to Connie, she can give you so many ways and so many things that she grows for medicinal purposes. The challenge is capturing that and having them grow specific plants here to send to market for those medicinal uses. So your biggest challenge, I think, is connecting the market with the Lumbee people and the people around Pembroke. You know? Just making sure they're part of that conversation, making sure that something they've always done, now we allow them to be relevant in our current market, because that's what we're trying to do, is just open up the market for them agriculturally. We produce a lot of field crops in Pembroke and in Robeson County, and we're one of the #1 producers in the state for that. But there are so many other things that people can go into. Garden vegetables, cut flowers, ornamental crops. There's markets out there, and we just have to be good about showing them how to transition from some of those crops, some of those field crops, if they choose to, and then show them where the market is so that they can make that money.
And is New Ground a helpful piece in any of that, knowing that they plant so many different kind of garden vegetables and things like that?
Yeah, when you have New Ground Family Farm and you have Locklear Farms and the McCombs and other people, they are a living, successful example of how you can do what we're talking about, and getting that message out to the larger community in this county, and just showing them that it can be done. If I didn't have Locklear, if I didn't have Locklear Farms, if I didn't have New Ground Family Farms, then a lot of what I'm doing wouldn't make sense, because there wouldn't be the people here that provide an audience for me to show them how to get from point A to point B. You know? Yeah.
Well, I think the interview's actually run a little longer
Yeah.
than I was hoping it would. I mean, everything that you said was great. I just mean I've asked a lot of questions, so.
Oh no,
I'm
it's
sure
weird.
It can be exhausting getting in front of the camera like that.
You're natural.
Oh, I am not, and y'all are very kind. I told myself this morning I wasn't going to think about it until we started talking. So.
No, you did great. That was wonderful. Thank you
I
so
felt
much.
like I rambled, but I'm happy to do it. I hope you get some nice sound bites from our information from the students too.
Yeah.
You know, because I know that if you come out to their labs, they're going to be working. So I thought this might be a good time for you to say, why is agriculture important to you? What do you know, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't get to stop and ask that question again after I've asked it a year before, and now they've gone through a year of school and they've gone to some conferences, and it changes for them. And it's their evolution, really, that is so beautiful to watch and inspiring.